Hi guys, so we've got a bit of an odd one today. So the thing that sort of triggered this video was that I've had a lot of people asking how painful my thyroid surgery is. It's healing up really well now, and I felt like I couldn't express to people how little it hurt, and so I found myself comparing it to other things, and in making those comparisons I just started to think, I wonder if I could do a video about that and compare everything, and I wonder if it would give a level of reference to things. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So starting with my one thing that is a 1 out of 10 pain, and that is subluxing my hip. When I wake up, my hips are always subluxed, which means partially dislocated, and this causes me very little discomfort. I do feel it when I put them back in, like that's slightly painful, but it's very quick, and as soon as it's back in socket I get complete relief. I don't get bruising around it or anything like that, and so for me subluxed hips are just so normal. They sublux all the time, so you know, when I wake up they're subluxed. If I've just been lying in bed for a while, they will sublux. But having said that, the subluxed hips don't bother me too much, so I rated them a 1 out of 10. And then the next thing, which I've ranked as a 2 out of 10 pain, would be my thyroid surgery. And I've realised now why this is. And basically, I had so much numbness from this. So my whole incision, I'll be putting up photos of this so you can see it. My incision site was numb for a long time, and so when they first did it I didn't have any pain. The main source of my pain was from the drain that put in, and the numbness is due to temporary nerve damage, and you know, because it was a big incision I just had a lot of nerve damage there, and it meant it wasn't painful because of, instead of pain it was numbness. Having said that, I did have pain later down the line, but I'm not really going to include that here. I might talk about that in a separate video because it was quite unexpected for me, but in terms of the surgery itself it would be a 2 out of 10. The next one I wish I had a photo of, but I don't, and it is the time that I put my tooth, this one is a bit graphic by the way, so skip if you're squeamish. My tooth went through my lip and out the other side, and
yeah, my tooth went through my lip and out the other side,
and I cannot remember the pain of this one. It's one of the only things on there. I can't remember the pain at all, but the reason was that I had 2 injuries at the same time, and that second injury is actually on the list, so we'll get to that later, and I definitely can remember the pain of that one. So yeah, even though I would rate this fairly low, I don't know if it actually would be not very painful or if it was just not painful because I was dealing with something that was so much worse. So I was going to hesitantly, I've got a little list here, hesitantly rank the hole in my lip as a 3 out of 10. I will say it's a very dramatic injury. Like when you get lip injuries, they're so dramatic because your lip swells up so much. So yeah, my lip swelled up, it must have been about 4 or 5 times the size, like it really was huge, but there was no pain with it, and my only pain was the other injury, which we'll get to later down the line. The next one is something that I'm assuming a lot of you can relate to, and that is cramp. I have ranked cramp 4 out of 10. The reason I've given it this rating is because in the moment it is pretty intense. Like if you've experienced it, I'm sure anyone would say no, that is a pretty intense pain. Like in the moment you would rank it probably a 7 or something like that. However, it's so fleeting and it should only last for seconds if not minutes, and so that's what has brought the ranking down to a 4 out of 10. And especially my things that are later in the list, I started to think to myself, would I rather experience this again or that again? And that was how I came to my decision, and so that's how that one ranked at number 4. The next one is dislocated shoulder. Shoulders are a joint that dislocate very, very easily. A lot of people will have actually experienced this, whether it be in childhood. I know it's common for parents to be like playing with their children and they dislocate their elbow or their shoulder, and so in an EDS patient it's no surprise that a lot of us have dealt with these dislocations, and I ranked that one as a 4 out of 10. And I would also say in an uncomplicated case it's a 4 out of 10. So with mine, I don't get huge amounts of soft tissue damage or anything like that. I don't think I've got any long-term damage from it. So I know that in some cases a shoulder dislocation can be really bad and can require surgery and stuff like that. Mine have always been uncomplicated, and also they've always gone in quickly afterwards. My next one is another surgery, and I've ranked this again as 4 out of 10 pain, and it was my urological surgeries. So I had a few things done all at the same time under general anaesthetic, and I ranked this one as a 4 out of 10 because I woke up fine and then I wasn't fine for about half an hour, maybe an hour. I really was in high levels of pain, but it only lasted for an hour and then it went right back down to like a 1 or 2 out of 10. And so I ranked that again as a 4 out of 10 because in the moment it was quite bad. It was like a 7 or an 8, but it was only an hour.
I'm really hoping that if I put enough pictures in, this won't be boring. So I'm sorry if you found this video boring. I just had the idea, and I thought you could let me know your most painful things as well. So if you'd like to be typing away and telling me your rankings or just your most painful thing, I would be interested in hearing that.
So we're now at the halfway mark, and I've put as number 5 dislocated knee. The reason I've put this as a 5 is again because every time I've dislocated my knee, it's been uncomplicated in the sense that it goes back in and I have quite minimal soft tissue damage. I definitely have a lot more bruising than with my shoulder, and it is more painful, but I get so much relief when it goes back into socket, and it's generally not out of socket for more than about a minute for me. And so that's why I would give that one a 5. And now we're getting into the higher numbers, and I can tell because when I think of these things I do think, gosh, I wouldn't like to go through that again. So the next one, which I've ranked a 6 out of 10, was a chronic CMC joint dislocation. So your CMC joint is here. I specifically not worn my braces so that I can point to the joint. So this is your thumb and it's actually below your thumb here. I had my left hand chronically dislocated for a long time. It was, I don't want this to be too squeamish, but that was dislocated for months, and I was in physiotherapy during that time, so people were keeping an eye on it and we kept strapping it back into the socket and it just kept coming back out, and I kept putting a brace on to help keep it in, but it was never fully in, and that was really bad. It was in my first year of university, and I would say things to my friend. I would say crazy things, and I think that's a sign that you're in a lot of pain because your brain is desperately thinking, how can I fix this when the rational measures aren't working? So strapping it up and bracing it wasn't enough, and so my brain was sort of going to different places. And the thing that I said to my friend was, I wish I could put my hand with my thumb in its joint in plaster of Paris, like plaster the whole thing, and then like that would hold my joint in place. Now that I'm thinking about it, it would be like a cast, wouldn't it? That's sort of the thing that I was describing. But I felt like I needed really high level of support because everything we were throwing at it just wasn't working. And actually when I feel this joint now, I can feel it's very loose still, and so I still do wear those joints a lot because I get a lot of pain from it, but it's not, thankfully it's not actually dislocated at the moment. My next one, which was a 7 out of 10, is the injury I talked about earlier. So at the same time that I put my tooth through my lip and out the other side, I probably should mention it was a trampolining accident, so that's how I did that. I went to do a somersault and it didn't go entirely well. So at the same time that I did that to my lip, I've put down dental injury. I don't know how to describe what happened here, but essentially it moved my tooth. I don't really know what to say. They thought my tooth had died in the beginning and I was booked in for root canal surgery, and then we got there and I had fasted, and then they said, actually I think you can get away without having the root canal surgery, but that tooth is discoloured from that trauma. I wish I could tell you like what the injury was, but I don't know. I was only 10 at the time, but I do know that anything dental is very painful anyway. Braces even, they're not painful all the time, but when you first get braces on and then when you try and eat something, that's really painful. It's actually quite a high level of pain, and it's a nerve pain, so like quite a shooting pain. So yeah, dental stuff, it tends to be more the shooting pains, which are really bad. My next one makes me cringe thinking about this one as well, because the pain was pretty bad, and it is a SI joint injury. So I'm not sure if this was a subluxation for me or if it was just an injury, but your SI joint is in the pelvis. I should have looked this up before I made the video. As I understand it, the pelvis has like two, I guess, like, I don't know what you call them, like winged parts, and then this joint in the middle, and the SI joint is between one side of the pelvis and that middle joint. So I had an injury basically in my pelvis in that joint and it was really bad because I couldn't bend over without this sharp shooting pain. I couldn't pick anything up, even if it was really light. Yeah, I couldn't pick up anything. I couldn't bend down. I couldn't go from sitting to standing. Like, it really immobilized me, and I think it was the least mobile I've ever been with an injury. I don't think anything has stopped me as much as that. And again, I had my memory foam mattress at this point, and I hated it because any movement would make the mattress move, and then my injury would get worse because it was those joints were like separating, and that's where the pain was coming from. And then the things I've put as my top two, I hope I've put them in the right place, and I hope I haven't marked them too high. But when I think of going through this stuff again, I would do a lot of things to not go through this again. So the one I've put as an 8.5 out of 10 was Bladder Installations. I had these because I've got a lot of scar tissue in my bladder because I get bladder tears, and so an installation is where they inject into the bladder a medication. I had one that was used to break down scar tissue, but the thing is, I had active isn't the right word, but I had tears at the same time. So I had scar tissue, but I also had tears. And if you imagine you're putting in this liquid which breaks down scar tissue into open tears, it was one of the worst pains I experienced. And you have to hold that medication in there for around an hour, and it was a really, really horrible time. And so for me, the hour was the drive home from the hospital, and I used to sit in the car just curled in a ball because it was that bad, and I couldn't speak. And I would also get stomach spasms from it, and intestinal spasms as well. It would just make everything go into spasm because I don't know why. I'm assuming it was from pain, but it was a really, really tough time because the pain was very severe, and I also felt very, very sick from it. And I assume it was because it was somehow causing all of those spasms everywhere. So yeah, that wasn't a fun time. And the only thing I've got that matches that is migraines. The migraines I can remember less clearly because, as I've expressed in the past, I vomit with my migraines, and so when I think about a migraine, I'm not just thinking about the pain, I am also thinking about the nausea and the sickness and the vision loss and all of those factors, and so the pain stands out a bit less in that situation. But I would give that an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10 as well, because you're just there in a dark room with a sick pole at the worst pain, and sometimes if you're being sick you can't even take pain medication. So I just really feel for people when they say they go through migraines, because I know that they're such, I don't know what the word is, but almost like an underrated thing. When people say, oh yeah, I suffer from migraines, it doesn't sound that bad because lots of people have it, but actually just because it's common doesn't mean it's not bad, because migraines are just horrendous. So I really do feel for you if you go through that. So that's my list. Those are my rankings. Let me know either the most painful thing you've ever experienced, or if you feel up to it, I'd be interested to hear your list, because you might have things that overlap with mine and actually you put them in a very different order. So that would be very interesting to hear. So I don't really know how to sum this up. Do I say, did you enjoy that? A little discussion about pain. But give it a like if you did. Maybe you had it on in the background, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Bye.